Hi, this is Janto with the DNB Academy, and in this video I'm going to show you how to process your drum bus. Alright, for this one we've got a pretty cool bass loop from DNB Academy's Creative Suite Volume 1 and also a drum loop that I built myself. Now I'm going to show you, so you can hear, the way both sounds play on top of each other and the way the drums are a bit too shy compared with the power and the presence of our bass. So let's hear it. I'm gonna show you the spectrum. So we have our sub bass sitting at a pretty cool spot, you know? It's really high in the mix. And we're not using any sidechain. But our drums feel a bit too underwhelming. But if we listen to them like separately, like, yeah, they sound cool, but they don't have any processing at all. Not on the kick, not on the snare. The percussion bus only has these default EQ and a limiting. Then we've got the sidechain for the kick and snare, but no sidechain on the bass whatsoever. So yeah, and as you can see, all the sounds are taken from the DNB Academy's Creative Suite Volume 1 as well. Our kick drum, our snare, no pitch modifications, nothing. We've got this head loop and this percussion loop. So yeah, what do we need to do? First, we need to start processing our drum bus. Then, something that you could eventually do afterwards, when I say eventually, I mean like you should always do is sidechain your kick and your snare with your bass. That obviously gonna lead up to a better drumming, a better sounding drums in your mix. But if you don't have any processing at all, that doesn't do anything because your drums will sound too stale and weak anyhow. So okay, let's just minimize these and then let's start working on our chain. First things first, when I get my drum bus mindset in, and when I say like, okay, let's process this, first thing that comes to my mind is distortion. We need to saturate or distort the drums first. And that's usually my first step when it comes to my drum bus. Okay, so for that reason, what I'm gonna use, it's Isotope's Trash. And when I say we're gonna distort it, we're obviously not gonna crank it up to a point where it's everything all over the place, because obviously as soon as you start distorting, the kick, the snare might start to sound different, and then you have to go back to our kick and snare and tweak it a little bit. But yeah, this is the first step. I'll just usually go with distortion, and with saturate, and I go to tape saturation, and I'm gonna start boosting the drive here without wave shaping it, just boosting up the drive a little bit. It's already something. Let's hear the difference. All right. We might have lost a little bit of our transient, but that will be recovered afterwards with some compression. Okay. And now I'm gonna EQ it right afterwards with the Pro Q. Just gonna cut off all the excess lows. So we're gonna set this around the 20 Hz area, or maybe like 30, 40, depends. I mean 30. I think somewhere around here, it's fine. And also here, so we don't have so many harsher frequencies playing here as well. So what we're gonna do, just make it somewhere around 20K. 19, 20, that's fine. Okay, let me put the bass a little bit lower. And now let's EQ our kick, because that's what happens as soon as you start saturating your drums. Your kick drum will be the first element to be affected, and you're gonna start hearing a bit of distortion and a bit of messiness on your low end. So we're just gonna pretty much like cut this a bit. You can even do a brick wall, and immediately you see how your kick sits way better on the mix. It was too much. Some of these problems will disappear with sidechaining, but not all of them. So that's the reason why you should always EQ it every time. EQ is one of the best things that you can do, and sometimes don't think about it twice. Just keep EQing after you add a processing plugin. So you're always correcting all the wrong things that sometimes can happen with processing. So keep that in mind every time. So now that we got our EQing pretty much done when it comes to the kick drum, and also I meant like the whole overall loop, we're not gonna be fooling around with this Pro Q. This Pro Q is just to remove these harsher frequencies. And now what we're gonna do is compress it. So I'm gonna use Glue Compressor from Ableton. Pretty standard compression plugin. And we're gonna do a pretty standard way of compressing a drum bus, which is giving it like a slower attack, but faster release with a ratio of 4. Then we're gonna start to work around with our threshold until we reach the 5 on the gain reduction section here. So it picks up the peaks, which in this case are the kick. Now let's make up what we lost. Decrease the bass a little bit. And I'll turn on soft clipping so we can limit it. Right, looking fine. Now let's just open our span and solo our drums. You can see the volume of things, it's quite fine. It might sound a bit harsh sometimes here at the tops, but we're gonna take care of it with a very useful plugin right after this. So now that we compressed it, usually what I would do now is doing another part of Corrective EQ, but I'm not gonna use the classic multi-band EQ. I'm gonna use a plugin that I've been using for quite some time that it's so helpful for these situations, and it's called Gulfoss. It's really, really good. And what does it do? This is just pretty much like a dynamic and a smart dynamic EQ. And what it does, it immediately adapts itself and it tries to understand what's wrong with the sound that you're feeding him, you know? So in this case, our drums are a bit too harsh on the tops. And if we play them, it will immediately pick up what we need to do. So let's start with the first settings here. Obviously we've got recover, which is the time that it takes to recover the changes that we're gonna make to them. We've got the tame, which is gonna pick up on the peaks of the sound that you fit it, and it's gonna understand and say like, okay, so there's a lot of information here, maybe it wants to remove that. So if you tame it, you will just make notches on those frequencies, and if you turn this upwards, you will just boost them. Bias is just the amount, and then brighten, it's self-explanatory. It's just if you want to brighten things up or not. So let's start working with it. Let's start with the tame and boosting it. As you can see, Gulfoss is starting to understand that these are the harsher frequencies. And these are the frequencies that is like taming. So let's start to bring the brightness a bit lower. As you can hear, drums are starting to get a bit more muffled, but if you balance things out, you just gonna remove like this crispiness to the top that's kind of a ear piercing. So we just need to go somewhere around here. Now let's make the recover like pretty fast. With that, we're gonna just increase the percentage here. Okay. And to avoid any further issues, we just need to edit our kick a little bit because it's just a little bit too long. If you see, if you tighten it up, it immediately stands out on a mix, and we start to lose that sort of thumpiness that we were getting at first, like a bit more distorted feeling on the kick. And it's still present and full, but leaves more way for your bass to work later. All right, now after this, I would apply my final plugin to the chain and then tweak things up along the way. So to close it down, I use this plugin that I've been using pretty much since I ever started making music, which is Camel Fat. It's been discontinued, but you can still get it because it's free. So even them, the company Camel Audio, like made it free a few years ago. So usually it loads up like this, but we click here and go to clear preset. And this distortion unit, because that's what it is a distortion unit with filters and effects, as a built-in algorithm that immediately, if you put it outside, at the end of a chain, it will just like limit things up. It will clip it. So if you notice, if I turn off the compressor, which is doing our sort of our soft clipping here, which we can now turn off, you see that we are peaking. If we turn on Gulfoss, it will still be clipping. But if you turn Camel Fat, bang, we are limiting the sound. And if we turn the clip compressor on, now we should turn soft clipping off because we don't need it anymore. And now here, we turn the Gulfoss back up. And now we can use this distortion unit and turn it on and start tweaking this a little bit, especially this exciter part, because since we already took a bit from our tops with Gulfoss, we just tamed the sound a little bit, we should make it up and give it a bit more on that spectrum, on that part of the spectrum. And with the exciter, that's what happens. We're gonna listen to it, like you see, we start getting that sizzle, but we just want to be mild with that. Then we apply a bit of Mac distortion here, maybe 1%, and now 2. Okay. And this is pretty much what you need to make your drum stand out. Obviously, this process needs you to be tweaking it along the way, because you'll be making your track. You're gonna add elements, new spots where you place those elements. So drums will keep on changing, and even the individual drum kit pieces, you're gonna be tweaking them. So this would be used as a default way of making your drums fatter and more present on the mix and sound more professional. Because before we end up this video, I'm gonna group up our effect chain here, and I'm gonna mute it just so you can hear the difference with this bass line playing without any sidechain on the bass. Never forget that. But this is what we got. Let me turn on the bass. Sorry. All right, now let's turn on all the effects that we added on our drum bus. Now off. Yeah, now on again. So yeah, I really hope you notice the difference and the importance of having this sort of mindset in which you're gonna apply this sort of thought processing to your processing on your drum bus. I really hope you enjoyed this video, and I see you on the next one. Peace.